All right.
Right.
How's it going?
Good, good. I'm feeling so much better now that the weather's nice.
Yeah, it's like a barren wasteland out there in Norwich in terms of like we haven't had rain for what feels like weeks.
Yeah, which is unusual. I know it rained yesterday, actually.
Oh, actually, it did. Yeah.
You and I got caught in the
feels
rain.
like weeks. It was only a spatter, though, wasn't it? Really.
Yeah. It's not the first time you and I have been caught in a spatter, to be fair, but
But it was the least pleasurable time.
yeah.
Yeah, it is nice. It is
Yeah.
nice. Are we going to be honest, Jamie, with this podcast episode and the behind the scenes story behind?
I mean, we always are, so we might as well be.
Yeah. So we're re-recording. That was surprisingly challenging to get out of my mouth. We're re-recording this episode on account of the fact that I left out something that I think is quite important.
Yeah.
So, you know, that if nothing else, that shows our dedication to perfection when it comes to these podcasts, right?
Yeah, or at least our dedication to being above average.
Yeah.
Or
like
at least
just-
average.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
indeed.
Nice. What did you do at the weekend? Well, I know what you did on Sunday because you took me for a roast.
I did, yeah. Yeah, so that's what I did on Sunday. On Saturday, I had the first barbecue of the year, actually.
I did. You invited me to the roast, but the barbecue.
It wasn't my barbecue to invite you to.
Okay.
It was mum and dad's. So
Well, that's even worse.
yeah, I'm
Why didn't I
surprised
get
that you
an
didn't
invite
get a
from
nod,
Susan?
actually.
Yeah.
But my nephews were there, so it was carnage.
Okay.
My mum and dad have a very small back garden, and so if you're barbecuing in it, whatever else is in the back garden at the time is in quite close proximity to the barbecue, just because it's
Okay.
that small. And my nephews wanted to play football, so there were a lot of moments where the ball would fly off at an angle and like nearly collide with a pork chop or
Okay.
or the barbecue itself.
Yeah. And pork chop is just a nickname that you have for your dad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good
Well,
job
maybe...
he doesn't listen to this podcast.
No. Yeah. Maybe we should do a barbecue soon. You and I.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, in my garden or yours.
Yeah.
We can have a kickabout as well.
Yeah, probably yours actually. You've got the turf, you've got the space.
Yeah. I have a really what's the word? Treacherous? No, not treacherous. My decking is pretty dangerous at the moment. It's very easy to put a foot through it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's old basically.
Okay. Well, that's good to
and-
know. Maybe
yeah.
my garden then.
Yeah. we had some people round a couple of weeks ago, and someone sat down on a chair, and the chair just went through the decking.
Oh no! Really?
So,
God.
yeah, there's like an area of the decking which is, yeah, and like it's not just like 6 to 12 inches full, because I've got this decking that's quite high up, right, from ground level.
Yeah.
I think it might
it's
be
a
like
proper drop.
4.5 foot or something drop, and who knows what's under there.
Oh, you're going to get yourself sued if you're not careful.
Yeah, except for that I'm renting the place, so it's not me
True,
that's liable for
true.
it. So,
True.
but anyway, let's stop talking about decking and barbecuing. So yeah, we're re-recording this episode because James wanted to add something in that he thought was worth adding in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what are we talking about in this episode?
So we're talking about, well, I don't know how to phrase it. I can't remember what the title would have been, but like, what should you write about in your newsletter? What makes a newsletter interesting to read for your audience? And it's something that we might well have covered before, and I guess kind of through osmosis, any loyal listeners will have an idea of the kind of thing that we might talk about. But on the fly, when we first recorded this, I came up with a framework for discussing this that I thought was good, and it's the framework in particular that I felt needed a bit of extra elaboration, which is why we're re-recording. But the framework itself, I kind of liked, Jamie. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today.
Nice. Okay. I think I probably will call this episode "What Should I Write About in My Newsletter."
Yeah,
Um, and so you'll have known that already as a listener because you'd have clicked on the episode and it'll
true.
have that title. But um, you've mentioned a framework then, so let me set
Mm.
you up for that framework. What should we write about when we're writing our newsletter?
Yeah, so before I talk about the framework, very
Okay,
quickly, sorry,
so
I know. That's it's so annoying when that happens, but
I'll set you up again later down the line. It's fine.
thank you. I just want to caveat that the the big problem for a lot of newsletter publishers, particularly businesses, is that they think whatever they write about is going to be really boring. And this is a classic obstacle that we come up against is people say, I know that email marketing is important for my business, but what am I going to write about? You know, what are people actually going to find interesting? And so that's the question that we're trying to answer. I think that is quite a real pain point. And so if you are listening to this and you already know what you're going to write about, I would continue to listen just to sense check that what you're writing about kind of ticks the boxes. But by the same token, what this newsletter, what this podcast episode is really for is for those marketers who work in businesses who are thinking, hey, we need to start sending emails, but I also want to make sure that they're interesting. And this won't prescribe specific advice because, of course, we don't know what the nature of your business is, but it will give you some fundamentals that you can adhere to. And if you're ticking those boxes, anything you're writing about should be pretty interesting.
Yeah, and that can be pretty tricky because I know when I've worked in previous businesses, when you're inside the business, it's really hard sometimes to have a perspective that allows you to get excited about and see the value in the kind of content that you could write.
mm,
And that's something that we come across quite a lot with clients. There's one that we ran a workshop with recently, and sometimes the help that we provide is just in the ideation around and validation around what is interesting and valuable. And I have had that before, certainly in businesses that I've worked in. So there are certainly, and we'll talk about it here a little bit on this episode, but there are things that you could almost certainly talk about that is going to be helpful or valuable for someone.
mm,
And we'll touch on that in a bit where we start to put ourselves in the position of our audience, in the position of our readers.
yes, nice.
Are you ready for a setup now, or are you going to?
Set me up. I'm
Okay,
ready.
cool. Okay,
I'm in the
fine.
box. I'm waiting for this
Okay,
cross to be delivered.
here comes the cross. So when we're putting our newsletter together, what should we be thinking about, or what should we write about?
So we need to be thinking about our exes, Jamie. And this was the phrase. You just have to pretend, listener, that I'm thinking this on the fly because in the first episode, I promise you I was. There are three X's that we need to be thinking about. The first is expertise. The second is experience. And the third, this is the one that I forgot in the first one, is exclusivity. Okay, so I'll talk through all three of these. So, expertise, that's very obvious. One of the key pieces of value that we can give, particularly if we're a business, is our unique expertise. So, Jamie, you and I, the Inbox Club, it's more than just you and I now. We work with a lot of agencies who are specialists at particular areas. You know, it might be that they're SEO specialists or social media specialists or whatever it might be. They have a depth of expertise that not many other people have, particularly the kind of people they're trying to talk to who might be more generalist marketers. And so sharing that expertise, that unique expertise that only you have, is a great place to start if you're thinking about what to include in your newsletter. The second thing is experience. Now, experience can link quite closely to expertise, i.e., we can use the fact that the person writing the newsletter might have 20 years of experience in a particular area. And from that come anecdotes and learnings and things that they've done wrong and things that they've done right, things that have worked, things that haven't worked. All of this stuff is stuff that ChatGPT can't just come up with. All of this stuff is unique to the person. But I would take experience one step further than that and say that experience can be, for the purposes of this framework, anything that is unique to you. So that could be your memories and the stories and the things that you've done wrong in the past that inform your expertise in the present, but it could also be less serious than that. It could be that so we wrote a newsletter for a client recently where we talked about the first car that he owned back in the 70s. And we gave loads of kind of funny details about this car and how much he loved it. And it was all to sort of illustrate a point about digital marketing. But again, this is stuff that ChatGPT can't know. Okay, no matter how good ChatGPT becomes and how sophisticated it becomes, and we all know it's becoming more and more sophisticated every single day, it will never be able to dip inside your brain. Oh, I say never, maybe one day, but at least not for the foreseeable future. It will never be able to dip inside your brain and pull out these anecdotes. So I'd say experience relates not only to your professional experience, but also your lived experience as a human being.
And that's where the color comes into it, right? That's where
Mm.
we start to get some personality in there as well. And I would even chuck perhaps tone in there with experience
Yes,
as well.
absolutely.
So how you talk about your expertise would come into under experience.
Yes, yeah, for sure, exactly. If you want to throw in what you had for breakfast that day and how good it was, etc., and oh, what did you guys have for breakfast? All right, that's not the most compelling example, perhaps, but as you say, Jamie, it's color, it's tone, it's conversational, and that all comes through your human experience. The third thing is exclusivity. And by exclusivity, all I mean here is offering something in a newsletter that you can't get anywhere else. So all too often we see newsletters are sort of just the sum of content that's been produced elsewhere by a business or an individual, right? So it could be a compilation of blog posts that have gone on to the website. It could be LinkedIn posts from your staff members. These things are combined and curated in such a way that they make a newsletter, which is how I would say the majority of businesses approach their newsletters. What we try to encourage at the Inbox Club is creating exclusive content for the newsletter, content that you can't find if you're following the business on LinkedIn or you're, for some inexplicable reason, a regular visitor of that business's blog. This is something that you can't get anywhere else, a piece of expertise, a fun anecdote, whatever it might be, that is exclusive for the newsletter. And by including that exclusivity, by giving your readers something that they can't get anywhere else, you give them a real tangible reason to keep coming back to your newsletters again and again. If people figure out that all your newsletter is a curation, a repository of blog posts and LinkedIn posts, the likelihood is that they're not going to open your newsletters the next time they receive one. They're just going to think, well, I've seen their LinkedIn posts, I've seen their updates on the blog. I don't need to open this newsletter. So give them something they can't get anywhere else. Give them exclusivity.
Nice. And if you were going to truly write about your ex in the newsletter, James, which one would you choose? Of
Which
the hundred,
ex?
yeah, of the hundreds.
Oh, well, yeah, there's been so many.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably have to choose you, I think,
Oh, yeah.
just for
From
audience relevance.
that short fling that we had,
Yeah,
that
exactly.
spatter we got caught in.
That's a nice callback.
I might choose your dad, aka Pork Chop.
Yeah, pork chop. Hey,
Uh,
he's got that name for a reason.
Okay, seriously for a moment then. So if we sum up those three that you just went through, so write about your ex. No, not about your ex. Think about your ex. Or I can't remember what you said now. Anyway, it had to do with ex. All I can
Yeah,
think about is
yeah,
Pork Chop now.
yeah.
Um, so we had expertise. So that is the knowledge that you're imparting as part of what you know and value that you can offer. We have experience, which is where we add the flavor and the color into that via your lived experience, your memories, anecdotes, the brand of expertise that you offer in your experience. And that is the part that is, can't, yes, you could ask ChatGPT to come up with fake ones, but that is the part that also is layered with authenticity that delivers something really impactful. And then the third one is exclusivity. So offering your subscribers something that they can't get from you, at least elsewhere. through blog posts, through your LinkedIn content, etc. And the reason we want to do that is because if someone subscribes and opts in, there's a value exchange that needs to happen. They're giving you their data and permission to email them, and you're giving them something exclusive in return.
Yes, very nicely summed up.
Perfect.
But one, oh,
Go
go
on.
on.
No, please.
I was going to say one thing that I haven't mentioned yet, which is a bit of a cardinal sin in email marketing, is the audience.
Yeah.
Jamie, I want you to riff on this, if you don't mind,
Okay, cool.
and talk about what we ought to think about when we think about, because there's this whole extra dimension, right, of what do our audience actually want to read? How do we go about establishing that?
Mhm. So again, this is something that we are helping clients with all the time. And when we think about the X's that you came up with there, so we talked about expertise, we talked about experience and exclusivity. And for every single one of those, we did link it back to the reader. In expertise, we were imparting something onto the reader. In experience, we were using our experience to make the message more authentic, enjoyable, and relevant for the reader. And for exclusivity, we were giving them something that they can't get elsewhere. And so, if we think about that, we're thinking about the reader. And when we look at this blank page and we start to write our newsletter, we do have to put ourselves in the seat of the reader, of our audience. And if you've gathered your newsletter list in a correct and organic way, then you'll know that the kind of people that should be on that list. You know that they'll either be clients, there'll be people that are like your clients, there'll be partners perhaps. And so you understand, hopefully by now, in running your business, who those people are, what they look like, what kind of job titles they have, what kind of problems and challenges that they have, what kind of opportunities they have. And probably most importantly, summing all of those up and then thinking, okay, well, what position do I hold in their life where I can offer to help them through the newsletter content? If I consider all of their challenges, you won't be able to help them with every single challenge. It might be that they can't get their kid to put the iPad down for 2 seconds. Okay, well, maybe you're not a family counselor, so you can't help with that, but you can give them some really good SEO tips if they're having a problem in their marketing job with getting, traffic to their website. So thinking about the problems that they have that you can solve, then it becomes really obvious what we should talk about in our newsletter. Well, I would go so far as to create real personas for these people. And if you find it uncomfortable to think of someone real on your newsletter list, which I would encourage you to do anyway, then we can create one. And, our friend Chat GPT, I said that I made sure that I said that clearly because the captions, when I do them automatically, never catch it. It always thinks I say like Chat Jeep or something. Chat GPT. We can use OpenAI or any generative tool to help us build these personas, and we can go back and forth and say, okay, what does this person do? What challenges do they have? What does their working day look like? What stresses them out? What do they get excited by? We can do all of that. And at the end, we can ask it to create a picture of this person, an actual image. And then we can print that image out and we can stick it on the board, say, this is Ben, or why can't I think of a lady's name?
Candice.
Candice. Yeah, Candice. This is them. And I'm going to write, every time I write a newsletter, I'm going to look at them and I'm going to think, okay, well, what do they want to hear from me from this week? What do they need to hear from this week? And what can I write down in this newsletter that's going to get them excited, solve a problem for them, or present a new opportunity for them? And so that, I think, is what I have to say about audience and how you should consider them when you're writing a newsletter.
Nice. I think you've absolutely nailed that. Let me give you another hypothetical scenario here. So let's say I've done all of that. I've got Candice printed out. She's on the wall. I'm writing to Candice. She's a marketing manager that works at e-commerce stores. And she's in her 30s, she's super busy, she's got loads of emails she needs to get to, etc., etc. But I want to help solve some of Candice's problems. The next question that a lot of people in those shoes would ask is, okay, I want to solve Candice's problems, but I also want Candice to eventually buy from me, right? I want her to become a client of mine, or I want her to enroll in my online academy where I'm teaching people like Candice how to get better at marketing in their roles. So I don't want to give away the whole pie in my newsletter. I I think the problem with that is that people then become quite conservative and actually they don't give away enough of the pie, right? They say, well, because I don't want to give her too much value because, you know, people are paying for that, I'm going to give her no value at all. So for you, what is the solution here? How do you find that balance between giving away enough value that Candice wants to come back for more, but not offering so much value that Candice doesn't feel a need to actually buy from you?
Yeah, I think that's a really thin line to walk, I think, actually. And it can be difficult. And I'm not saying that I'm always very good at that, but I would always fall on the other side where I give away too much. Um, I reckon there are ways in which you can talk about a problem and offer something insightful without solving the problem completely. And I think the other thing that we have to consider is that as much as you tell people how to do something, it's very rare that they'll actually go and do it anyway. So, telling someone how to do something and then them actually doing it and or doing it successfully is quite rare, I think.
Mm.
So we shouldn't be too worried about giving away too much. That does depend on the kind of industry and the business that you run, though. I would say there are definitely, I could say to an e-commerce store owner, you should have a welcome automation and an abandoned basket automation, because those will be two of your highest earning automations, right? That's something insightful. I could even then chuck in some of my experience and say, okay, well, for this store, we set these up, and this is how much it contributed to their revenue. And so I'm layering some experience in there. They might have seen a LinkedIn post where I said exactly the same thing. So I might want to put some exclusivity in there where I say, okay, and here are a couple of tips that I don't give out anywhere else that are that will make it your welcome automation like really good.
Mm.
They've still got to go away and know how to use the email platform, whether it's Klaviyo, OmniSend, MailChimp, whatever it is. They've got to be able to craft really good copy. They've got to be able to design these emails, build the workflow. They've got to integrate it with their store. I would have said you've got to do some A/B testing. So they've got to do the A/B testing. They've got to do all of those things. Not only that, but they've got to do it well. And the chances are they won't do it as well as I could if they paid me to do it. So if we consider all of that, then all of a sudden, I'm not giving it'd be different if I said attached to this email is a 30-page document that runs step by step how to do these things. That's very
Mm.
different. But,
Mm.
I wouldn't worry about giving away too much, because generally you won't be, because they still need to rely on someone with expertise to do it for them.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think if there is a problem that you can genuinely solve in the space of a 3 minute email, it's probably not a service that you ought to be charging much for anyway. You know, if you can really get someone to the point where they don't need you for a 3 minute email, then that says more about your service offering than it does the content of your emails and how much value you ought to be giving away. I think generally speaking, the best newsletters help people with the low hanging fruit, the stuff that can be solved very, very quickly and can be done by anyone. But they dangle enough of a carrot that they hint towards this this much larger iceberg sat beneath the surface of stuff that you can't solve over email and that you do need an expert for. And generally speaking, there is a direct correlation between the amount that you're willing to give away in value through your newsletters and the amount that people crave your expertise for more problems that they're facing.
Yeah. And if we were honest with ourselves as well, um, we think about the stat where X percent of people are in the market to buy at any one point when it comes to B2B.
Mm.
The likelihood of someone saying, okay, well, I need a really good welcome automation, and then me sending them an email about how to make a good welcome automation, the likelihood that that has then dissuaded them from paying someone to sort out their welcome automation is really, really slim. So all we're doing here really is giving people good ideas. And what will probably happen is that good idea will go somewhere on their to-do list, maybe in their head, and it will highlight something that they should do and should be thinking about. And, you know, the likelihood that they are thinking about that exact topic the day your newsletter turns up, and then that solves the problem for them there and then, and it's done and dusted. What you're doing is building up this portfolio of credibility of the subject that you're talking about. And, you know, when eventually they are ready to buy, or they're in a position where they need your services, then they know where to come, because you've been speaking about this really insightful stuff that's made them sit up and listen for the past 6 months. So I think, you know, that there, for any subject, there'll be so many things that you can talk about that it's really unlikely that you're going to give away in too much in one email anyway.
Love that. I also love portfolio of credibility, by the way. I think
Yeah,
that's a really nice turn of phrase. I'm going to steal that.
nice. I call it POC.
Oh, do you? It's
Yeah,
trademarked, is it?
yeah, yeah,
Good stuff. Nice. Shall we hot take?
yeah. That's hot take.
Have you got one in the barrel?
Yeah. I mean, I can cobble something together.
Okay. After you
What
then.
first?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, fine.
It's always you first.
Yeah. Okay. My hot take is I'm going to go for the persona thing.
Yeah.
Think of your audience first. People have said that in marketing for a very, very long time, so it's not that hot a take. But I would use ChatGPT to put together your persona, have a conversation with it, talk about these people. And I think for me, something that people don't use ChatGPT for a lot is asking it to challenge you on things and ask questions of you. And so that you really have a conversation. So yeah, build this persona up and print out a picture of Ben or Candice.
Yeah, and write to them and watch what happens. And we've probably talked about this already, but watch what happens to your tone when you're writing an email to one person, Candice or Ben or whoever it might be on your wall, rather than the group, rather than the 1,000 people on your email list. Suddenly your tone changes. You become more familiar. You become more entertaining to read just by virtue of writing to an audience of one rather than however many subscribers you've got. So, yeah, I like that. I'm pretty sure the first time we recorded this, that was my hot take. So,
Ah,
just saying,
all right.
you've really thrown me in hot water here.
Yeah, that uh, you kind of appended my hot take there. Was that your own hot take, or was it just an
No,
extension
no,
of
no.
mine?
That was me just making yours
Uh,
even higher.
even higher. So it's
Sorry.
like a growth on the edge of my some benign growth on the edge of my hot take.
Look, one man's benign growth is another man's I came in and rescued you. So
Okay, fine.
no,
Famous saying.
my hot take is going to be resist the temptation to see your newsletter purely as a signpost for other stuff you've done on the internet. I think this is a problem that's actually becoming more prevalent rather than less prevalent, is businesses using the newsletter first and foremost because they want to drive traffic to their blog posts, for example. It's something that Jamie often talks about, which I really enjoy, is, and this is me kind of highlighting that you're now helping my hot take, Jamie. He talks about sending people the wrong way down the funnel, and the fact that newsletters are further along in the funnel than a blog post. Blog post sits right at the top, right? Once you've got someone subscribed to your newsletter, they're in the middle of your funnel. They need to be pushed towards the client end, the conversion end, not back towards the blog posts. Yeah, focus particularly on that exclusivity part of the 3Xs, and you should start seeing much better engagement.
Nice. That can be an episode later on. You know, what
Yeah,
do we get people to do next? What comes after newsletter?
nothing. It's just like the end of the universe.
Yeah, it's just a black hole.
Yeah, indeed.
There's no life. Well, there's no life after newsletters for us anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Just is what it is. Do you think there's a caveat here that I haven't run this past you? Well, we don't run much past each other when we record these, and I think we're in sync for most of it.
And think, dirty
Yeah,
pop.
Yeah.
on Justin Timberlake.
Okay, well, fine. I can do that. We can do the dance on one episode as well.
Yeah.
Um, so we might end up editing this out if you don't agree, or if you think this is really stupid. But actually, if you build that persona of someone that you're writing to, you might find out that for that persona, consuming content through a newsletter isn't for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, you know, I think we need to have a bit of humility here, in that sometimes newsletters aren't the right fit. I'm trying
This
to
is the
think.
real hot take.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, maybe that's the case. I haven't thought about this too much. And I think in most cases, especially in B2B, newsletters are good, but some people just don't read them. And I think maybe there is some research to be done there for the listener into the kind of audience that you have and whether they consume newsletters as their favorite piece of content. What do you think to that?
I'm scrunching my face a little bit here for those of you who aren't listening with video, predominantly because my devil's advocate here is that nearly everyone, I think over 99% of internet users have an inbox. Unlike any other medium, you know, email has more monthly active users than Instagram and TikTok combined. If you're going to reach your audience on any platform, it surely has to be email, particularly in the B2B space. So I would say, even if there's evidence to suggest, and it would be interesting to learn how you would find this out, even if there's evidence to suggest that your audience is less inclined to read newsletters than another audience, my task upon finding that out wouldn't be, okay, I won't send them newsletters. It would be, what do I send them that would turn them into newsletter readers, where otherwise they wouldn't consider themselves to be one.
Yeah, that's a great point. So so it's how we present and write our newsletters. For that audience. I don't know. Maybe we go back to the parent that. No, maybe we think about the kid that we want to write a newsletter to. Maybe it's like 13 to 16-year-old kids, and we want them to read a newsletter.
Yeah.
Is a newsletter still for them, or would you try a different medium?
I mean, kids is a totally different example, because that's hard on any platform to reach kids, and there are all kinds of compliance issues you have to deal with if you're creating content specifically for kids in any case. I see what you're saying. Actually, newsletters are really popular amongst younger audiences. I'm using that as a segue to talk about the fact that there isn't any generational gap. People sometimes think wrongly that boomers are the only people that read newsletters, and your Gen Zs don't. Actually, that's not true at all. I don't have the exact stats on me, but Gen Zs love newsletters and love using the inbox as a way of consuming longer form content, because ordinarily, they're bombarded by TikTok videos and short-term attention stealing stuff. A lot of them enjoy the sanctuary of just sitting down with a piece of longer form content and enjoying it.
Okay, you got an answer for everything, haven't
you? Apart from 13-year-old newsletters.
Yeah.
Oh, I've gone all plummy.
That's right.
It's getting a bit emotional.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, I think that's it. We've recorded over time for this one, so thanks for listening if you stuck with us to the end. I'll catch you next time.
Yeah, all right.
Bye.